you got a whole lot of people out there, a lot of rodeo clowns that dress up in their silky stuff, but don't really tell jokes, do funny stuff. They're not clowns, they're entertainers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ramblin Rodeo podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning into this episode with Trent McFarland. We had such a great time recording. We talked a little bit about everything from his rodeo side to his medical side. Unfortunately, due to the lighting and the issues we had, I had to turn off my video. After editing, we thought that was the best decision to just go ahead and turn off my video and have the guest video and audio. There'll be a picture of me on one side in the audio, and then you'll have full guest video and audio, and you'll still be able to hear the whole interview. I just want to go ahead and apologize for that, and we already have everything fixed and squared away for the next podcast we have recording. I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in before, and if this is your first time, welcome. We do have merch fully up. If you want to go to the Ramblin Rodeo Podcast Facebook page and check that out, there's links there. Also links in the description. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ramblin Rodeo Podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah Ellis, and we have a very special guest with us today that I'll let him introduce himself. Before we start this podcast, like always, we're going to start with prayer. Lord, thank you for being able to do podcasts. Lord, thank you. And God, that I pray that you guide me today to do this podcast. God, I pray that my words be your words, Lord, and everything that I do today glorifies you. Praise you and thank you for all you do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Dude, that's huge. I love the fact you did that.
I like doing that because, even at a rodeo, if you think about the rodeo, any rodeo that you start, it's going to start with prayer. I think that that's what makes rodeo. It's one of the, you're going to have the prayer and you're going to have national anthem. That is so important, I think, in everything that we do in life and in the industry that we are in.
You're exactly right, bud. You're exactly right. I apologize. Unfortunately, we're doing this over my phone, and a few calls came in and bumped me. I'm so sorry. But you nailed it, dude. Not only in the rodeo setting, but anywhere, period. We can't do anything without God, all right? That is one of the hard truths that I have come to realize this past year because my world's changed a lot, man. I've been kind of through all kinds of situations in this past year. Went from being all over the country rodeoing from South Florida to Alaska, East Coast to West Coast. I used to cover some territory as a rodeo cowboy, all right? But at the expense of most cowboy songs, you know what I mean? You can either have rodeo or you can have a family, but very few guys get both. And so,
Yep.
It's when you're going through your hardest times that you realize, that God has been there the whole time. Unfortunately, we have to get in the valleys to truly see him, and we tend to forget him on the mountain peaks. And man, it's easy because I'm telling you, all over the country, everyone knows your name. You're at the show. And by the way, since you didn't introduce me, dude, what the heck? You didn't introduce your guest. I'm Trent McFarland, rodeo clown entertainer, okay? I love it. I'm a second-generation rodeo clown. When most dads are teaching their sons how to throw a football or hit a baseball, my dad was teaching me how to put on makeup, okay? So that's where I got my start. And went a little bit further down that same thought process, and my mom was a nurse. So I decided she had a good job with benefits, and my dad had a fun job, and you go have a good time, and I did both. So I'm an operating room first assist in trauma, orthopedics, neuro, general, vascular, whatever. So that's what I'm doing as a job, but my also job that'll keep me on the road 40-something weekends out of the year is being a rodeo entertainer. And it's a lot of fun. I can transition both those jobs, one into the other. Cowboy gets hurt, I'm right there. I can check him out. Is this serious? How bad is this? Don't move. Let me stabilize your neck. But if he gets up, I'm like, what's the matter with you? Oh, my ankle. Get out of here. You're not going to stop the show because you stubbed your toe. You don't get turf toe in rodeo. That don't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can use that training. And then in the operating room, when a patient's scared and going to surgery, I tell them jokes. I'm having them laugh and cut up. And even in the operation, if it's a very intense situation, as soon as we get through that, we all need to laugh because it's intense. Man, good joke goes a long ways for the team.
I like how you use it for both. And you train for one and it helps with the other, and you train for one and it helps with the other. So I like that a lot. I couldn't
Let me tell you
imagine.
something, buddy. God blesses people with talents, and that just happened to be a talent of mine. I want to help people. I want folks to feel better. So if I can't heal them, I can make them laugh.
I like that a lot. I couldn't imagine having a rodeo clown in the operating room with me. That kind of be a little scary for me, but I mean, I guess it is
Yeah,
what it is.
the staff members are the ones who are the patient's asleep, but staff. It's funny when we get new folks to come in because they're like, "Wait a minute, you're a clown?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I told you I was a clown last week." They're like, "I thought you were joking." I'm like, "No, I'm a rodeo clown. That's me."
I like
So
that.
good stuff.
Let's go into like your upbringing just a little bit. Where were you raised, and how did you kind of get into being a clown?
All right, so my dad was rodeoing up in Pennsylvania. Met my mom. They fell in love. He met her while he was rodeoing up in Pennsylvania, a rodeo that I still love to go to, North Washington, Pennsylvania. It's a great rodeo. And they hit it off. She ended up going out on the road and traveling with him, and they landed in Wyoming. And that's where my brother, me, and my sister were born, was in Wyoming, Cody, Wyoming to be exact. And it was 1980. I know you don't think things are from that time century still around, but yeah, okay, I'm not as young as you by a long shot. But we were out there. Dad was working the Cody nightly as a cowboy, as a rodeo clown. And then in the fall, he could be, guide big game hunters. And then all of a sudden, there's no way to make a living in the winter. They shut down all the oil fields. So they hauled back here. Mom and dad separated. I lived in Pennsylvania for a while with her and my family up there. But then when I was 15, I said, Mom, I want to be a rodeo clown. She's like, well, I can help you get, I can introduce you. I was like, nah, Dad's a rodeo clown. I'm moving to Alabama. So I've been
Oh,
living
wow.
down here with Dad ever since, and I grew up rodeoing with him. He taught me the dynamics. People don't really understand what it is you do as a rodeo clown. People don't understand. They think you go out there and you just act funny, you act goofy.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's a lot more to the sequences of how that happens. Just like if you go to Broadway and watch a play, you go to a movie theater and watch a movie, go to a concert, all those are productions. So rodeo is a production. If fans don't show up, sponsors don't contribute money, Cowboys don't have a venue to go to because there's no sponsor money for Cowboys to win. So we're in production.
Right.
It is what it is. So from the start of that show and to the end of it, it's a movie. You got ups and downs. You got highs, you got lows. You got me that comes out there in the very lows or transitions in the show where they're going from one event to the other, but they need the switch from the buck and stock end down to the time event end. That's where I step out with a big, long, elaborate act. And that's where I shine with what I do. Because there's been a large movement since Flint Rasmussen, and he's the great. He was a phenomenal rodeo clown. Not a lot of people think of Flint as a rodeo clown because he was such a phenomenal PBR entertainer. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
There was a day where he used to wear the Wranglers and he wore the baggies and he dressed like a clown. But the PBR, and they were talking to a buddy of mine, they wanted him to be the original Flint, but he wouldn't cut out his look. Well, PBR
Right.
wanted to separate themselves from rodeo, so they wanted their entertainer to have the jersey shorts, the jersey shirt, look different. And because my buddy wouldn't do it, they bounced over him, picked up Flint. So ever since Flint, you've got a whole lot of people out there, a lot of rodeo clowns that dress up in their silky stuff, but don't really tell jokes, do funny stuff. They're not clowns, they're entertainers. They turn to the crowd at the right time. They can throw their hands up, get the music behind them, and then get everyone clapping along. And they might do a little dancing. But as a rodeo clown, you're an entertainer like those guys, but then you're also a comedian. You do stand-up comedy, improv, slapstick, some of those great timeless movies or shows from the 50s and 60s, that there's some comedy gold in that stuff. Just timeless.
Yeah.
I got to talk with an incredible rodeo clown, because my dad is obviously, I think highly of him, but you got your heroes as well. And Liesl Harris was a hero, right? He was top dog, won PRCA Clown of the Year numerous times. He was incredible. to watch him work. Now,
Right.
Liesl's biggest thing was saying is that timing is not everything, because that's a typical saying. Timing's everything. You know, how you sell a joke. You wait for that pause. Timing's everything. Liesel said, timing isn't everything. It's the only thing. It's the only thing that matters. You tell a joke at a funeral, wrong place, bad timing. You got to know how to read people and know whether to deliver that setup and punch them in the jaw,
Right.
that they don't expect the punchline. It's funny because it catches them off guard. They thought they were hearing a true story, which has
Right.
gotten me in a lot of trouble too, because people think that I'm really out there acting wild and crazy and whatnot. Well, you said in the arena that you've been married 4 times. They don't understand what a joke is a joke. So, yeah. Yeah. I've been talking away. What you got, bud?
Yeah, I like that a lot. And like you talked about quite a few people, the greats, the well-known, everyday people that you're seeing on the PBR, these bigger rodeos.
Good friend of mine.
When you're creating, like maybe to go into a show or maybe you're getting ready, was there videos these guys, like I know for me when I team rope, like for a long time before I even started team roping, I watched the great headers, all the competitions. Was there people that you watched videos of to prepare yourself for getting ready for?
Well, so yes and no. And I'm going to strongly urge people and advise people to go the no route. Okay. And here's the reason why. Liesl Harris was a great. Flint Rasmussen's a great. I can't be better at being them than they were. Okay.
Right,
Those guys made their mark because they had their own identity. It's the difference between a cover band versus the lead band. The lead band's doing something new, something original. People don't want to see somebody else perform somebody they're used to hearing say something a certain way. So, and especially as a rodeo clown when it comes to skits, to come to the big elaborate acts that we do, because I kind of shine in that area. I've got a race car, an ambulance, a taxi car that I got from Liesel. It's one of my crown jewels. Beautiful. Trick mule, a trick rope. I got a hat cleaning machine that I love. It reminds me of something I did with dad. Rocket act. I get, bullwhip act. I bought 6 more acts from Liesl Harris.
right,
I got acts coming out the ears. But you don't want to look at somebody else doing their skit and look at it on YouTube and memorize the punchlines, the jokes, the everything. There's no honor in that. You're stealing somebody else's material that you make a living with, and you're not going to get the same joke, the same laugh. Now, do we all use some of the similar jokes? Absolutely. There's some jokes that you'll hear on TikTok. I'll hear it on TikTok. I might not know you're telling it, but we're going to say that it just comes out. If it fits into a show, by all means. But those big elaborate skits where hey, this guy's got a race car and he came out, and Danica Patrick and Ricky Bobby, and next thing you know, you're doing the same thing. Well, why are you going to do that? Everyone knows that's me,
yeah,
so they're going to talk about you. And if for young guys trying to start off, that you're going to make enemies out of the people who are friends with those greats if you're stealing their material. So anyhow,
right. I've heard a lot of rodeo clowns. Like I know how you talked about how you're on the road a lot out of the year, and I've heard multiple rodeo clowns say that through other podcasts, like where they're on the road a lot. Is being a rodeo clown something that there's not a lot of, there needs more of, or what do you think on that?
hey, that's a good question. There's always room for people to eat at the table. Okay. Guys that feel a calling to do this line of work, you can make a good living at it. But just like every other successful story, you've got a lot more people that never quite figured it out. They never could get to that next level. They just always broke even and broke down in the truck getting to the show, and it was just a miserable experience. And so not everyone's going to take off and fly. Not everyone's going to be a stand-up comedian and be able to tell jokes when the show is completely off of the rails. The power goes off on one side of the arena. They can't compete like that. So now it's the clown's job to entertain that audience for 20 or 30 minutes until they replace a transformer. Yeah, you never know what you're going to do, but that's when you
Right.
find out, okay, this is where somebody either earns it or they ain't got it.
Yep. Let's talk about like so first. I guess my first question is it an association that you're going with that you're just the clown for? Is it multiple associations, or do you find your rodeos throughout the year?
What can I say? I'm a hoe. You got the money, I'll go. All right. That's the way it is. Now, the PRCA is the top tier. Make no mistakes. That is the top. All right. I do
Right.
as many as I can for the PRCA. That's professional level. So they pay professional money. All right. They'll have more performances in a row. Like this year, I worked Greeley, Colorado, and that was 7 performances stacked back to back to back. Well,
Wow.
shoot, that's a heck of a paycheck. So I like PR. Obviously, I love PRCA, but with life changing in my personal world, where after 15 years, it just needed a little bit of a break. I hope that's all it is, but we'll never know, right? So that changed the rodeo business aspect for me because now I can't be in Arkansas or Missouri or California and pick kids up on Friday from school. So, what a
Right.
blessing, though. God is great all the time. All right. This past year, I've found a whole new love for the Lord. I've been able to see some really cool things come to fruition in my life as a blessing from Him. And I've been able to bless others, I hope, and testify and spread the word, you know what I mean? Because God's there. We are the ones who turn our backs.
Right.
Okay. So I can't say enough about that. But one of the blessings that's come from this is, you know what? I can stay closer to the house. I can work 40 hours Monday through Thursday as a nurse in the operating room, making good money. And then Friday, I pick my kids up. We go to a rodeo 2 hours from the house. We get a rodeo Friday, Saturday night. They get to have fun with the rodeo buddies. They get out there in the arena just like me. They're out there with me like I was with my dad, and they're growing up doing it. They're in
Right.
front of the crowd ever since they were little bitty tykes. They've been out there in the arena, and so to be able to have them and every other weekend we're at rodeos or we're having fun being boys, God's great. It's a blessing. So it's a whole
Exactly.
different aspect. Yeah, I may never get to work the NFR because right now, it doesn't look like I'm going into the PRCA for all my shows. Like I had been doing some rather large PRCA rodeos, right? Don't know what's going to happen. It's God's plan. And that's part of what I've had to turn into this past year when you're broke down. Who better to rebuild you than God? So, you know
Yep.
what? Whatever I can do with my blessings, what the gifts He's given me, however I can help point people to Him, that's the ultimate calling, what we're supposed to do. So we'll see where God takes me on this next journey.
I like that. I tell people all the time, like I'll apply for something. They'll be like, "Well, what's all your goals for this year?" Or what do you want to be done? What all do you want done this year? And I remember one specific application. I said, you know, I want God to guide me through this life. I have a vision board, I have goals, and like obviously there's things that I want as a person to accomplish and move forward with. But I think that sometimes our desires can get in the way of God's plan. Man,
Oh,
I just really
absolutely.
think so.
Absolutely. What's
So
it
I
say in
think
the Bible? The heart's the most deceitful thing of all. Go ahead.
it is. It is. And so letting God guide you through everything that you do is crucial. That's where success is going to come.
You bet. And let me tell you something about God. He'll let you do it your own way. And life will beat you down to your knees. I got someone helping me out on the interview tonight. This is Rowdy. It was, hey, Rowdy. Man, I seen where you were licking earlier.
Is that one of the dogs with those on your show? In
Yeah, oh
Britain?
yeah, this is Rowdy. He's my only dog. He's my best good friend. And again, what a blessing God, gave me him to where this past year was a lot of lonely times. I'm used to having kind of family with me, but me, he's my buddy. Ever since
Yeah,
he was a pup, we've been traveling all over the country together. He's always been my traveling buddy.
I like that. We'll talk a little bit about. So, I mean, it sounds like some people are reaching out to you. Sometimes it's you reaching out to go places. But when you
No, for the most part, I don't ever really reach out. They call me up and they hire me a year or so in advance and say, okay, we want you for a rodeo entertainer. Well, how much is it going to cost? Well, you give them the money. And you tell them. And
yeah,
they're like, okay. So you strike an agreement. 2 years from now, I'll be there on these dates for this price. Everyone's on the same page. And that's the blessings in being an entertainer versus the cowboys. Because how many
right,
cowboys, they spend all the money to get there. They've got $100,000 truck, $100,000+ trailer, $50,000 horse, paying diesel fuel to get to the shows, which by the way, in Canada is $10 a gallon for diesel. And then they pay money to enter up at the rodeo, maybe $100, maybe $200. They got to buy food for the family. Now they got another $100. And then at the end of the night, they may win money if they're the top 3 or 5 out of 40 or 50. Math's not good on that. That math ain't mathing at all. Where I know what
It
I'm making before I ever show up. So
it's
that's why I went into that's the business side of being a rodeo clown.
math does not math. Definitely when you rodeo, like you'll go spend all this money going and entering and half the time not win anything. And if you do win something, it sure ain't what you paid to get in there, including your fuel and everything. So I like
Oh
that
yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
part pays for sure.
Hey, the best way to become a millionaire in rodeo,
I don't know many ways.
start off with 2 million.
Yeah, I like that. It's definitely a very expensive sport to be in.
Oh, absolutely. It can be heartbreaking. It can be
Right,
heartbreaking. If there's any cowboys out there right now going through a hard time, let me give you some encouragement, okay? Let me build you up and tell you the best way to get back on your feet is to miss about 2 or 3 truck payments. You'll be back on your feet before you realize it.
that's gonna be a real. Like that. Alrighty. Okay, so that just made me lose my train of thought. Let's go back into your acts when you're going into these things. Obviously, like you're great at telling jokes. Is when you go and travel these rodeos for the year, is it the same act every time? I know, like obviously, rodeo is so unpredictable.
I know where you're headed with that question. How do you decide, is it the same act all year long? In the ideal world, yes. But in the ideal world, I've been going back to some rodeos for 7 years in a row, and it might be my first year at this rodeo for a different one. So,
Right,
people ask me, "Hey, will you bring in the race car when you come to my rodeo in 8 months?" Well, I can sure try to, but I ain't no guarantee it'll be running. All right,
right,
it is what it is. There's no guarantee nothing I've got is going to be running at all times. Okay, that's me.
right,
That is the life I live in. So
right.
just trust me on. I'm going to bring you a good quality act and leave it to me.
Right. There's something about you that I've seen. Like, man, we're at rodeos. I guarantee 90% of the weekend. It's like we're at rodeos all the time. Youth rodeo, high school rodeo, pro rodeos. Like we're just at rodeos all the time. See a whole bunch of different clowns all around. Like, but there's something different about you. And I don't know. There was something so different. Like I've come across so many clowns. There's so many clowns I could have interviewed, but there's something different about you. Like when you came in there, it was like I don't know. It was just different. Like you had the show in your hands. There was no time where it was like this is boring. Like this is like it was so cool from the beginning you came in to the time you left with your dogs with everything like with your
Well,
dog you
thank
had with
you,
everything that you had and then you walk out behind and you see your beautiful rig and I'm like oh my gosh this guy's got it figured out.
dude. Let me tell you something. I thought I had it figured out at one time. All right. I thought I did. But you know what? God is good. He blesses me. He gave me talents to step out in the arena and do what I do. And what you said is a huge compliment. The ability to get out there and he's blessed me with ADHD. All right. What do you mean? All right. I didn't know that doesn't make sense. Most people take medications for it, whatever. It's a blessing. All right. ADHD is a blessing. You see the world through different lenses, especially since I'm left handed. You know what I mean? You see things different in the rodeo arena. If I'm bored, the crowd's bored. So
Yep.
my ADHD, I'm popping from one thing to the next. I'll see somebody sitting over here. I'll find a joke. Somehow you talk to somebody and they're part of the show. Now their friends and groups look at them laughing. That's ADHD is, jumping around. Boom, blessing. In the operating room, it's really intense. Do you know the other side of ADHD is hyper focus? You shut everybody out. You're focused on what's going on with that trauma. And ADHD people function better. They function better with dopamine dump, which adrenaline is that. All right. When you're in adrenaline for ADHD people, slows down. You can think clear
Right.
and you can see those things breaking down, whether it's in the arena with a bull or in the operating field. You can you function better with adrenaline. I don't know how to say it. If it's a boring day and I'm half asleep, it's another day. Man, you get a little jolt
Right.
of electricity in you from something going on. Let's go. you know?
Yeah, I like that, and I guess it is a blessing to you. Like it all seemed a part of the act. Like you were everywhere, but it was cool to watch and it was cool to see for sure.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, man. Hey, I just enjoy having fun,
So talk us through what a typical act looks like for you for someone who may not have seen your show. What does a typical act look like?
Typical act, you got some kind of intro, whether you show up unannounced or you come in with some kind of formal introduction, and the crowd thinks they're going to see one thing, but then it turns into a whole nother thing. It's all about, working those angles that people don't think what's going to happen, and you catch them off guard, and you might have some really good jokes. Again, the stand-up comedy goes into the play there. You got to find a way to mix all those ingredients together. It's like a soup, you know? It's like a soup, or I always tell people a tackle box is my favorite analogy. But being a rodeo clown is
Yeah,
like having a tackle box, okay? Do you know much about fishing?
just a little
You
bit,
know,
good bit.
a little bit. Okay. So if you're out there at the pond and you're using plastic, fake lure, whatever, and you're throwing it out there for 40 minutes and you don't have a bite, what you going to do?
Get live bait.
You're going to change up the bait. You're going to do something different, right? So being a rodeo clown, in my opinion, is like having a tackle box. And inside that tackle box, you got a whole bunch of different lures. You can be a stand-up comedian. You can do improv. You can have scripted stuff. You can do dancing. You can do crowd entertainment where you're clapping along the songs and you're getting them to sing along. There's so many different things, and all around the country is different. What's funny here isn't funny in Maine or California.
Right,
So you go to material for jokes where you just know this is going to be a smooth beginning to the show. You want to land that first punch really good, make people pay attention to who you are, right? And that's part of why I look the way I do. Not right now.
right,
I was retro when I started doing it. I had rodeo producers telling me, lose the wig, lose the yellow wig. It's too much. But instead of listening to them, in my mind, I knew what I was trying to accomplish. I'm the rodeo clown. I want the kids to be able to look out there and spot me quickly. I want people who care about watching me entertain. If they don't want to watch me, watch the rodeo, right? Not a problem. But I want them to be able to look across arena in a crowded area and what shows up? That yellow wig. They can visually see you. And that's why I don't love the jersey ideas that some of the guys are doing. Because if they look out across there, they can't tell whether you're the clown, the entertainer, or if you're the bullfighter, because you look kind of the same, you know?
right,
But for me, an act is elaborate. You come out with a concept of what you want to do. You might have a funny car, okay? You went and found a funny car at the junkyard down the road and you want to come up with an act. Well, then you got to figure out, okay, what are we going to do with this car? What's going to be so funny about it? It looks silly, but what can we do with it? You got to figure out pieces of the puzzle together to where when you enter the arena, the crowd, wow, they're paying attention. Something's going on that's impressive. It looks sharp. Everything goes in front of the audience has to be looking good. There's no excuse to go out
right,
there with sloppy material. And furthermore, if you can go to Walmart and buy all the stuff you need for a skit and cost $50, it's not much of an act, in my opinion. An act needs to be big. It needs to be big props. And like I was telling you earlier, so many guys have went that Flint Rasmussen route where they want to dress up as entertainers and they want to clap their hands, they want to do their dancing and shake their butt and all that. But they don't have the depth to go any further than that, where big acts, I may not ever work PBRs because I'm not their kind of fit. But in the rodeo world, I can make good money because
right,
I have big acts. They can hire me and know, okay, Trent will come in. He'll have that one big act or two big acts that we need to fill the show. He'll walk and talk and do entertainment with the crowd. That's a complete package now. Now you got a product to offer somebody and say, okay, I know you're going to pay Joe down the road here $1,000 for the weekend, but I need $1,200, $1,500 a night. So now I'm
right.
walking away with a lot more money compared to what they were paying that guy, but they're getting more stuff too.
You kind of got your own way of doing things, like
Yeah.
it'll be clear if someone copies you. I can say that much.
Let me tell you something, dude. Dad always preached to me. Weak fish swim downstream, strong fish swim up. You want to get ahead in this world, eagles don't fly in flocks. All right. You got to do something
Right,
different. They
right.
don't fly in flocks unless you've been to Alaska, and I do a few rodeos up there, and they're in flocks up there.
Mhm.
Bad analogy. All right, amigo, you got any other questions for me tonight, dude? Because I feel like we kind
Hey,
of wrapped up, talked about it quite a bit.
I got questions. I got questions.
What you got?
Let's talk. Let's talk about your dog. How did he kind of was your intention when you got him to put him in your acts? How was
Oh,
your training with
absolutely.
him?
Absolutely. The girl I got him from, I went to nursing school with her. And back then, I had an old yellow lab. He had a little bit of cur dog in him. And he would come out there and I'd spin a rope around him and I'd jump in the loop and I'd sit down on a knee and he'd lick me on the face. And it was cute. You know, I had the rope spinning around me and the dog. So
Right.
she knew I did tricks with him and she raises these Aussies. And she called me up. She said, "Look, I got this beautiful male. He'd make an incredible dog in your show. If you'll, I'll give him to you if you'll just let people know where you got him from." And so, sure enough, that's what we did. Okay. And my wife was not very happy. The wife at the time, she was not very happy with me getting a dog because she didn't want another animal to deal with. And da 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 da. All right. Now let me tell you something about dogs and wives. If you come home and it's quiet, but all of a sudden the dog's barking at the back door and the wife's hollering at the front door, who you going to let in first? Do you know? The
Your wife?
dog. The dog. Because when he comes in, he'll shut up. All right. I'm just saying.
Oh my
So
God. Oh my God.
that may be why my marriage failed because of jokes like that. But anyhow, but so she did not want this dog. And I was like, "Look, the dog's coming home." And she was like, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I am. Here's a dog that $1,000 dog given to me for free. So yeah, why wouldn't I take the dog?" And so then I had to double down and really get to working with him and make him into a trick dog. Because if not, you can imagine. I told you it would be nothing. He's been a
He,
good doggo. It's been a blessing. What else you got?
he's very,
Shoot.
very talented. He's really cool to watch. Y'all
Thank
really
you.
cool. Did you ever rodeo any, like other than RodeoCon, did you ever do any rodeo events?
I rode bulls for a very short time and I tore up my groin muscles. Okay. So it's a hard injury to recover from for bull riders. And just so happened I was working a bunch of rodeos with dad. I was 17, 18. And we worked a huge venue in Greensboro, North Carolina. It was a PBR. Laser lights going off everywhere, pyro going off. They spotlight me in the middle of the arena, and I was this young kid. And I thought this was the coolest thing in the world. And I threw my hands up in the crowd. I thought, yeah, that's great. And then the hometown hero came out, Jerome Davis.
Uh,
And he was the winning world champion, PBR world champion, and the first guy to ever win the PBR as well as the PRCA. So he was a double world champion. He could ride bulls. All right. He stepped out in the arena. Man, that crowd exploded. I thought they were going to blow the roof off that Civic Center. Right. It got crazy. Sure enough, end of the night, last bull rider out, Jerome Davis. He rides bull for 92 points, wins. Boom. Wins his hometown show. Crowd's ecstatic. I'm signing autographs beside the guy. Like, wow. Right.
wow.
He said, "Man, I got to get out of here. I got to go catch a flight to get." I said, "Man, I wish I had a camera. I'd love to take a picture with you. This is cool." And when I got down the motorhome, there was a signed autograph sheet from Jerome Davis. Great job, Jerome Davis. Dude, cool, right?
Right.
I'll be a son of a gun if 2 weeks later, the next week, he gets thrown off a bull, lands on his head, he breaks his neck, C3-4. Same injury as Superman had back in the 90s. In fact, they were in rehab together. Jerome's still alive, but he doesn't, he puts on bull ridings. He's phenomenal. He is an inspiration. All right. Jerome's an incredible guy, but he'll never walk again. I don't even know if he can really use his hands. But I saw that happen. Another buddy of mine got thrown to the bucking chutes. His head hit the steel. It put him in a coma for a couple months. Then another guy I knew, he went to the same practice pen I was riding at, foot hung up in a rope, bad situation. He died. He never left that
Mm.
arena. And I looked at my dad and I said, "Dad, I don't think I want to ride bulls." I thought I was going to really let dad down. Like he was going to be upset
Right.
because my dad was a cowboy. He rode bulls, bucking horses, steer wrestled, roped, and fought bulls. Right? He did it all. And I thought I was going to let him down. I was like, "Dad, I don't think I want to ride bulls." And he said, "Oh, thank God, son. Throw that crap in the closet." And so that was cool, right? Fast forward, I went to a bulldogging school that dad wanted me to go to for a birthday present. And I went and kicked butt at the bulldogging school, learned how to throw steers. That weekend, we did a jackpot. I won the buckle. Next week, dad said, "Well, you ready to go in a rodeo, son?" I said, "Yeah, dad, I think I want to quit being, I want to quit while I'm on top." Says right here on the buckle, I'm a champion.
Right.
Never threw another steer, right? It just never made sense. Let me pay money and possibly wreck my body and try to win money. No, I can wreck my body just fine doing all the crazy stuff I'm doing in the arena, which is a lot.
Yep.
I broke my femur, I tore up my ACL and popped it in front of a crowd. And all those times I was wearing a microphone, and not once did I ever scream out, holler out, do anything silly. I talked over the microphone calmly, told them
Wow.
to send the ambulance in when I broke my leg and I broke my arm. And all my buddies looked at each other and like, oh, this is great. Trent's doing his ambulance skit now. He changed it up. And they didn't realize I was hurt. And I was laying out there with a shattered femur, like it was bad fracture. And finally, guy came up to me that was pulling me on the horse of the ski thing that we were doing. And he said, you okay? I said, no, I broke my leg and broke my arm. Well, it went over the PA system because they never turned my microphone off after I told them to.
Oh, wow.
Paramedic got to me. It was a young guy, an older man, and I already talked to the older man about me working in surgery and ortho, neuro, da 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 da. So when they got out to me, I said, look, guys, I broke my leg and broke my arm. I said, I need one of you to pull traction on my femur and straighten it out. And the young guy looked at his boss, and his boss said, yeah. So he grabbed my foot instead of pulling traction. He just elevated it. So it bent right at the fracture, it just kind of bent. I was like, no, man, you got to pull it. You got to pull. So they pulled it. They carried me out back, whipped out their scissors. Of course, I'm on a backboard, and they whipped out their scissors and said, ooh, stop. We ain't cutting shit off. So just calm down.
Right.
I got an $800 microphone. I got handmade shirts, chaps. Stop. Just think about this. And by the time Wendy was holding my arm, okay, and this arm, I fractured it right to the very tip of it was fractured, but this whole thing was dislocated and backward back here. And so it was deformed. I could feel it. It didn't feel right. And so I told Wendy, I said, you got my arm. While they were undressing me, I said, do you have my arm? She had it right here. I said, do you have it? She said, yeah. I said, are you sure? She said, yeah. And I grabbed my wrist and I popped it back in place. I said, God, that feels better. And the paramedics, at that point, there was 8 paramedics, and they looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Like they ain't never seen someone like this.
I
But
guess I have an experience.
it's like Dad always said, you can't cancel the circus just because a monkey died. I seen Dad get caught by a bull when he was, older than I am, and threw him up in the air, second bull out of the night, threw him up in the air. He landed and he broke his arm, and his knee hit his eye, and it was gashed wide open. And went out back for 2 bulls, found there's an orthopedic surgeon that set his arm, splintered it, and he stayed out there the rest of the bull riding, which was another hour and a half, with a broke arm and an eye gashed open. You got to be tough.
So I definitely a sport that nothing you can just leave, just walk right out on. But
Right.
I like that. So I got just a few more questions. You were talking about bull riding. You're also the man in the can too. You got your own can and everything too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's part of being a rodeo clown is you got to have a barrel. And so the bullfighters are the first line of defense for the bull riders. The bullfighters step in and they save the bull rider from the bull. If the bull rider gets thrown up in the air, he lands on his head, he's dizzy, disoriented, gets thrown down really hard. They need the help. So the bullfighter steps in there and distracts the bull. If that system doesn't work and it's a really bad situation, I can move up with that barrel and walk it up there to the bull, and I can help give that cowboy somewhere to get behind. But also I can use that as a great big battling ram or tank, and I can carry it into the storm, and that bull finally focuses his attention on me. He whacks that barrel, and he usually rolls it away and kind of distracts the bull.
Right.
Being a barrel man has been a significant part of my career, obviously. Whenever I was a kid, I remember first rodeo I did with my dad. I was 12, and I asked Dad, this like sure enough the duration of the rodeo, like the whole rodeo I was out there, not just for a little skit. And Dad had quit rodeoing. He, when Mom and him separated, left Wyoming, he quit rodeoing. And all of a sudden this guy got in a bind, called Dad up. I happened to be down here for the summer, and we went and did a rodeo, first rodeo. Man, I was hooked. And I asked Dad, I said, Dad, hooked as in I loved it, but I was worrying about getting hooked. I said, Dad, what about these bulls? What do I do? And he said, son, the worst they can do is kill you. They can't eat you. And I'm not sure how that was supposed to make me feel better, but I stepped out there anyways. And needless to say, a couple of years later, we got a clown barrel, and I was so excited. That meant I never had to run from another bull in my life. All I had to do is get in that barrel. And we went and picked that barrel up in Atlanta on the way to a rodeo in Pigeon Forge. I slept in that barrel in the back of that truck the entire trip up there. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Anyhow, my phone's telling me I'm just about dead on battery. You got any other
Okay.
questions, bud?
Hey, one more question. I
Yeah.
promise. I'm gonna cut you loose. I'm gonna cut you loose. So, the question that I like to ask people at the end of the day, when when the arena lights are turned off and you're driving home, what do you want people to think of you? Or
Oof.
what legacy do you want left behind?
Dude, that is a deep question. That is, I got so many levels to it. You have no idea. I've spent thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles doing just that. Leaving out after the rodeo, after the fun, exciting weekend was over. I remember how it would break my heart as a kid when that show was over. It was so fun. It's so exciting. And, the song Turn the Page is what I always think about. You know what I mean? Every ounce of energy you try to give away, you're playing at a truck stop, you're road weary, and people never see that. They see the 2 hours of bright lights, fortune, and fame, where you're the funniest guy they've ever seen. And the announcer just happens to say the right words, boom, and play off each other. They don't see you drove 14 hours straight through the night before to get there. You're doing the rodeo for a few nights. And then that night after the rodeo was over, I was breaking camp, hauling butt, driving all night, get back to the house on Sunday. And Monday morning, I'm in the operating room at 6:30. So you got to hustle. I would hope that at the end of the day, if people, look back and think of me at all, I hope they
Right,
say, think of me with a smile, you know,
right. I like that. I like that.
and
Well,
I hope at some point I was able to be a good influence, a positive person in their life to maybe help them through a hard time. And
right.
maybe, definitely I hope they can see where I tried to reflect them to God. You know what I mean? We're supposed to love
I
each
like that.
other and show each other grace.
Yep, for sure, for sure. I like everything that you said, and I appreciate you taking the time to join the podcast today. It really does mean a lot, and you've helped me. I appreciate it, and thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we end
That's
the
it,
podcast?
dude. Hey, it's been a blast. Take care, my friend. Holler at me. We'll do this again. We'll catch up.
Thank you so much.
All right, see you, man.